Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.
All right, we are back once again for the Detroit is Different podcast, and I'm here with one of the closest homies that keeps this whole machine moving forward. Lawrence Technologies is the place I go when it comes to anything computer, as I run into all types of strange computer issues, and over time I met this man, Tom Lawrence. He's also a Detroit is Different vet because I've interviewed him before, and they've saved me in all types of snags of God knows what the hell is going on with my computer. The whole team over there, especially my homie Steve. Tom, how you feeling today?
Doing great.
That's good. That's good. All right, so let's talk a little bit about content creation. I've already kind of gotten your backstory and everything, but right now, just in that short time, a couple of years from interviewing you, you've transitioned from like having one of the most successful, and you're still running that, like being like one of the most successful people when it comes to networking and systems and wiring and setting up computer systems, Metro Detroit, especially like that downriver area, where now you're like a YouTuber.
Yeah, so it's a fun transition. So to elaborate a little bit on what you're talking about, we do a lot of, IT services for small business. We're popular in the downriver area. We've been in business for 15 years. And but that also is what made me think, I love sharing all the knowledge, and I'm a geek at heart. So sharing all the enthusiasm I have for technology. And I said, well, how did I do this at scale? And I did some speaking events. I did that. I spoke at a handful of colleges, and I was actually for a little while I was speaking at the University of Michigan, part of their MBA program. They would have me come in and teach classes. But the problem you always have is scale. You can only get, 30 people in a classroom. When I spoke at Walsh College, okay, there was a few hundred people because they have a bigger auditorium. But like YouTube means I can interact on a global scale, not just local. And that was really intriguing to me. And I have a cousin who got me kind of excited going, this YouTube thing's pretty cool. And so I'm a late bloomer on it because, everyone else has already got 100,000, 200,000 subscribers. And I said, I'm going to try this. And then it took me about a year to build up. I got 25,000 subscribers, 3.4 million views. And the views count is not as high as it is on some, kid playing games channel, of course. But I'm talking about tech. And it's a deep niche topic. I'm doing training on how to set up more enterprise and mid-enterprise equipment and getting people enthusiastic about it. So it's been kind of fun. It's been been a fun journey, and I'm really just covering what I do anyways, because I know a lot of people are curious. Technology drives everything we do and touches us in some way or another. So people get a lot of curious on the plumbing that makes it all work, the firewalls, the switches, the things. So it's a real niche content that I have, but I've quickly growing a very fast audience for it.
Okay, as you talk about quickly growing this audience that you got for tech and how it's come together, you also have strong interest in video.
Yes. That
started from strong interest in photography. Yes. Because your videos are very, very crisp. They're clean. They look good. It's not like, you just got a cell phone stick and you're opening up a computer.
Right, and so my background in photography comes from just the things I like in art. I loved photos. I love that. And actually, my kind of sort of secret that most people don't know about me is I was a wedding photographer for about 6 years. I got really into it. And I don't know how to do things not obsessively. So I was obsessive about my craft and did everything from destination weddings. I was doing weddings every single weekend, became very good. I had photos published in magazines and things like that. So I was really into the art of it. And of course, being the technical side, I'm fascinated by the cameras and all the technology. So I just brought that knowledge right over. And matter of fact, it's some of the same glass I had for my photography, which I've now sold all my wedding photography equipment, but it's the same 10 millimeter millimeter lenses for the wide angle shot, same zoom lenses. I went with all Canon video equipment, so I use like the Canon Studio Cams and things like that. So it helps. That knowledge just interprets over really well. The same mechanics that work for the optics work exactly in that. So it was kind of an easier transition for me. I didn't have to do that research part that a lot of people do. Go, what do I do for cameras? I just had to figure out which video camera do I want. I'm probably going to Canon, but which Canon camera do I want? Because I already have Canon equipment. I'm already familiar with a lot of how that works.
And along with being familiar with a lot of the Canon equipment, lighting is another one of those cool things. You all recently, to me, it's a new space that you all moved into, but you guys are kind of old there now. But
yeah,
the new space you all moved into, because the old space, you were like operating in a space like maybe like what 1/8 of where you're operating with video.
We were
now?
cramped.
Yes.
We were cramped. I never needed a big building for anything because, well, we mostly are on-site techs doing our tech thing. So it's not like it's all happening inside of a building. Well, turn it around when you go, I need a studio space, and we found a great deal in a building and built a dedicated studio for it. And it's kind of funny because there is, as much as you gave a shout out for Steve, Steve was not at first a fan of the studio. He was like, that's a big waste of space. You got like half the building dedicated.
That sounds very Steve. That sounds very Steve.
Yeah, he wasn't, my staff wasn't buying because they didn't understand it as well. They completely get it now and they're all in on it and having a lot of fun with it. But it was a big transition to have this big open space that is dedicated to where we build projects and video building those projects for the purpose of training and things like that on YouTube. And, part of it too, it's weird. A lot of people really appreciate my channel, and I try to do my best is I ask for people if they can afford to throw money at me, that'd be great, because it doesn't pay incredibly well compared to most of the places. Any of the training I offer is expensive to get into tech. So you see all these advertisements for all these tech training, $1,000 this, sign up for this class and things like that. We give a lot of it away. So it's been trying to find that balance of justifying all the money we spent on it too.
But along with it, it's ingratiated you as an authority in it.
Yes.
And these are things that you naturally do anyway. The other day, with the setup I'm on right now, I brought in a whole nother audio board. So the past 2 weeks, I've been doing podcasting with my mobile board because of naturally you were like, oh, what happened is your computer isn't grounded.
Yep.
And then you were like, okay, this is how you reground how things work and everything. And I haven't even showed you, but I used another one of those like keyboard stands to to lift up my tower that everything records into. So now I'm going this is sounding real tech-ish and very boring for people, but I record this audio onto a computer, a desktop computer. That desktop computer was not, because it was not grounded and it was not coming out of the same outlet as the actual recording device, I was getting a hum and a buzz.
Yep. Now it's kind of funny because my audio engineering goes back to the 90s. I used to build, I think this is still probably a thing. I'm just out of the culture, the car culture as much. But I used to build really high-end custom stereo systems, like where we'd take the back of the car apart. And we were doing this in the 90s back before, you see these competitive things I've seen where people like custom mold stuff. We were doing it with wood and carpet and building
so
amps
it was
and everything else.
Like Pimp My Ride.
Oh, yeah. We used to do that out of my garage. And so I learned all kinds of audio engineering information back then. So that's my background even further as in board level electronics and things like that. Actually, for a little while before you met me, I used to own a TV repair place. We used to do board level circuit board repairs. So I got a strong familiarity with that as well. And then but that's where all that comes from, setting up the ground loop isolators and everything else, because we wanted to make sure there's no hum in the car. And back then it was always just getting rid of the alternator hum and creating these, pair of 15 or 18-inch speakers and things like that and building out these big amps. So no one wants that hum. And a little hum like that, well, that comes through in those stereos, when you're doing it. Not really. I never tried to compete for any trophies or anything. We just kids playing around and seeing how loud can we make it, and people will bring their cars to me, see how they can make it. So that's where some of that knowledge came from for I have in the audio business.
Yeah, and even me with my audio experience, just knowing the fine ground, like when I used to make a lot of tracks and what I do in recording, I just know I would walk to a place where there wasn't carpet generally with wherever the device was, get the ground, and then reconfigure it like around there. But the problem up here, as you see, it's carpet everywhere. So
And that's the one thing I've never gotten into is I am horrible at producing music. So I've stayed away from that. Like I'm fascinated by it. I'm like, I've always liked things. I think this weekend's Demph too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Since they started charging, I don't go. I don't feel as real.
Many people don't. That's a whole nother gateway into the world of open source technology, but continue.
Yeah, it's all, my only comment on that is I feel once they kind of commercialized it, it isn't the same Demph I went to back in the 90s and the early days of it. I remember that, and now it's kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just me being old and I'm just too old to go there now. I'd be the old man with gray hair there.
Yeah, boy!
Public Enemy's Minister of Information, Professor Griff, celebrates the 30-year anniversary of the best hip-hop album ever. Thursday, June 28th, 2018, at the Jam Handy. Witness a special Behind the Music unsung tribute to Public Enemy's It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back album. Hip-hop performances from Mahogany Jones, Kari Way Frazier, and more will honor the landmark album.
But anyways, yeah, I've always been fascinated by music and the technology, but not being able to produce it. Of course, that's why I'm so fascinated with it. It's the same reason I can't draw, but like artwork, I can't draw things. But I'm like, my sister's an artist. I'm like, how do you do that? Like, you look at things and sketch them, and I'm like, I don't know, I can't even scribble straight.
So this is just like you all can clearly see, like, me and Tom talk for hours generally.
Oh, yeah.
And Tom generally breaks like, look, I got to get back to, and it's like, yeah, I probably need to get back to work too. But with this being said, let's kind of park at YouTubing right now.
Right.
And we were talking content creation because a lot of people, look at YouTube as a gateway for stardom, success, money. There are many different avenues right now that are being presented to the public with paid content creators, like through Facebook, Netflix, Amazon. There are more and more television networks buying into the idea of the online content creator. And at the root of a lot of this, with what I do with Detroit is Different, with everything that you do, like, it's still a passion that I feel like makes the best content.
For sure. And there's never been a better time to be a creator. We'll just throw that out there. As much as there's any of these platforms that you may want to put your content on, they all have certain troubles. And if you're in the creator circles, you'll see the little drama about, they monetize this or demonetize that. All that set aside, the bigger picture of there's never been so many people individually just pushing and uploading a video and sharing something they're passionate about. And I think that real connection you have becomes very interesting. I remember the writer's strike years ago. And remember what happens to writer's strike is a lot of the reality TV shows stopped, and it kind of makes you pause for a second. Wait a minute. The writer's strike caused some reality TV shows to stop. Yeah, we all kind of had an idea it was scripted. Some people may not have been as clued in, but we know so much of that is overhyped and cut and edited to create what a perceived drama. Versus you listen to some of these other people from podcasters, and especially the YouTubers, someone with a camera, and I'm going to point out, because I'm a science guy, I like Cody's Lab. This guy, I forget where he's at, some rural area. He does all kinds of really basic science experiments with really simple things. There's not a lot of production, not a lot of editing, just real simple. Here's the science. Here's what I'm going to show you how this works. And it's just cool to watch because you get this learning thing that's so awesome. And Adam Savage, from Mythbusters, he's become more on he went from this produced television show, Mythbusters, that made him famous, to leaving all that behind and becoming a very direct creator. And you can follow him on YouTube, and he's someone else that's very passionate. He says it's just so great because he likes to build things and show you how he built them and teach you. And I think that direct connection with YouTubers is the really the mass media companies are trying to figure out how to embrace it, but they can't because they put the spin. It's that real connection we have.
Yeah, and I was telling a writer recently that was talking to me about writing descriptions for different shows, because I plan on bringing on more shows. You're going to see more podcasts with Detroit is Different. It'll be a little bit more curated. It's not going to be like anybody, quote unquote, has a podcast per se. Like, just people that are passionate, and I see some very niche things. Like, one woman I'm going to approach, like, I'm very excited about this, and I think you'll like it too. But a friend of mine, Sandy Epps, she's been doing this, she's been doing for about 5 years, a black doll show where it's just like all these like dolls for black kids. I think that that'll be interesting as ever in a podcast form, which is very niche, meaning it's definitely not going to be, the masses will not be interested in something like that. But those few people that are interested in that, I think it'll be something that is a community that will connect to it.
And that's always the thing. People, it's at the top, they try to figure out, okay, how are we going to monetize this? How are we going to do this? They look at it in a very corporate way. But the reality of it is people want just a story. People love the passion and when they see one person doing it. I've mentioned even at a YouTube channel called The Great Big Story. It's a really simple 3-minute videos that are on somebody doing a thing, and it sometimes just becomes fascinating. I learned about the voice actor who voiced this particular character for a long time and what his life was like or whatever. I think they had the person who was the voice of Siri on there, and she's recorded the voice of Siri for the iPhone. And it's like those little things are kind of just novel and stories. There's all these niches of humanity that we can bring out, and as a platform, this becomes a really easy way to do it. And it's there's more people interested than I think any large corporate place realizes in those stories. Yeah. Probably the only corporate place that realizes what the interest level in those stories probably is, like a platform like YouTube.
Yes, and even the way that YouTube moves, as you watch enough YouTube videos, you'll get those weird commercials that's like, I knew this guy that was just sitting around on his couch and he was making pizzas, but he also liked to really make good pizzas, and now he's a YouTube creator. You can come to my college. Like, it's so weird. Like, even the way that's being sold, it reminds me of remember, I forget that guy's name, but the like late night at night, like back in the 90s, it was that Chinese guy.
Oh yeah,
with the boats. That was like, you can be a millionaire.
You can be a millionaire too. Yeah. I think for any given moment, there's always some pioneering marketing person trying to figure out what the next thing they can package and sell you is. There's always going to be those people out there, whatever. So, I mean, there's pieces of the economy I guess we need. Maybe he created value. Remember the guy in the question mark suit?
Yeah. With the like the government has money that they're not giving you. Yeah, question mark suit guy. I'm sure that package was so.
I want to say Great Big Story did a story on him. I know I watched something about him as an individual, and he's as eccentric in person as you could expect. I mean,
I met in that same world. I met the ShamWow guy at he was at a forum. This was like early, like right after he was like doing a special presentation for ShamWow, and I was like, man, that's the ShamWow guy.
Yeah.
Like in some of these infomercial people, like the Chinese guy, the ShamWow guy, the rapper from the Blue Blockers commercial.
Yeah.
Just stand question mark guy.
There's so many of those little pieces of that. I think there's all kinds of fun, interesting facts about individuals, and Detroit, I think, is just an awesome place for it. I think there's so much going on. There's so much history here. There's so many things here. So a lot of opportunity. The hardest part is curating and finding it, undoubtedly.
Yeah, I definitely will watch like a 10-minute documentary on the Blue Blockers rapper.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Dude, if I can find that guy, I mean, I bet he's got a story.
It was like, yeah, man, so I'd be walking. People still come up to me like, y'all see the Blue Blockers rapper?
Yeah.
Got that sombrero still.
Well, you go back to thinking about 80s things. I've fallen and I can't get up.
Yes.
There's a story about the guy who invented that, and he didn't. He was a smart guy, came up with a horrible ad, and the goal was to make it that bad. Goal was to make it memorably bad. And I forget the guy's name, but he interviewed. One of the things, his big failing though, is he didn't patent or copyright things, and the whole thing became copied. So he didn't make as much money off it as he could have. But it became this weird little cult classic of I've fallen, I can't get up, and he's got an entire. I found a video of people interviewing him, and he's a very interesting guy who's actually gone on to create a lot of other things, but he's famous for that one thing, and his career launched with that.
And if they're interesting, and the people that are making the content are interesting, and it has like an ethic and an intentionality, so many things can be really cool. It's almost and it's funny, it is a Sunday morning and we're talking, but my mom used to always watch This Sunday Morning on CBS, and that show was that show. Like its segments would be so like just all over the place. Like, like one day it'd be, some tomato farmer, and then it'd be like a rapper, and then
Yeah.
it'd be like and what was so funny about a lot of those segments about This Sunday Morning on CBS was generally the more famous the person that the segment was about, the less interesting it would be.
Yeah, what was, and I want to say his name was Harvey, and I don't remember his last name, but his tagline was, "And now you know the rest of the story." He was a radio broadcaster, would have been in the 40s, 50s, and he always had little stories about people that he put together. I don't know where it was bumped up against, what segment it would have been. It was back in the radio days. He was never on TV that I know of. And those little things. Like you said, there's always that little interesting story about someone who did a thing. And this is where YouTube as a platform, and YouTube's a platform to do this. There's so many more out there, and I don't know what's coming next. These are the ones we're talking about here in 2018. Something even bigger could come out in 2019 or later this year. You never know. But it's still the same content. It comes down to content creators, and people love story. People crave story. It becomes fascinating for them to hear about these people. And I always, you want to just know, how did you get to be the guy who did this, the blue blocker sun guy?
Yeah.
What made you put a suit on with question marks and get on and buy a commercial going, "Government's got money for you"?
Yes. Now along that, and I guess this could be, it's just like in music. The discussion has been going on in rap or just any form of music. Like, back in the day, you needed all this money to go to the studio, but now the barriers of entry are lower, so much more music is being created. But, with the intention, because it's also a lot of people that have the talent to make good content, but their value of what they feel like they can get from it isn't even necessarily in creating good content. It's in what they believe the good content will give them.
Yeah.
And I guess this is more like maybe like a bigger altruistic question, period. But what's your take on like a lot of people that have all of the the recipe to make something really cool, but they're kind of stunting their growth because of their expectation for what it will get?
There's unfortunately a lot of hype sold that you're going to be the next star of whatever platform, YouTube or whatever, Instagram star. Sometimes I think people are oversold on the hype of it, and they have an expectation that they will go viral immediately, and then when they don't make it to episode 2 or even a third upload. And we talked a little bit before the show about podcasting, and I have a podcast as well, and it's the same thing. I knew in the early days we talked to dead air. And you just have to push forward and keep doing it until you find it. You can't expect the first thing you do to do that. So I think that's a lot like people might sell themselves short because they go, "Wow, no one liked that thing I did, so I only got 4 views. I guess I'll stop." And what happens is when you later have something good that comes out, people realize you had some good content. They go back through as long as you left it uploads. I've seen people who go around deleting that first couple uploads. They're like, no, it's embarrassing or whatever, and I don't want to do it. And funny story is he's a pretty famous tech YouTuber now, KBHD. He does a lot of tech phone reviews. He has been on YouTube for like 10 years. So, and he's only like 22. So you're talking about him as a 12-year-old kid when he uploaded his first video.
Wow.
And he leaves.
Like 12 years ago, he was like talking about like a sidekick or something.
Yeah, when you look at him, it's crazy. I mean, when you see a guy, there's a large transition humans go through from about 12 to 22. There is a growth spurt that you go through. So here he goes. His voice hasn't changed. He's there talking about some laptop, his first video, and I'm sure it got no views. That video is highly viewed now because people went back and looked at his original content. But it's kind of cool because all the videos are the accumulation buildup. So just because someone doesn't view it, you're not going to go viral from the beginning. You have to really have that persistence. The other thing too is there's so many more niches. We as a society never had an option to do this before. I want to say it was Bing Crosby was actually one of the most viewed ever to televised series, and they talked about a lot of perspectives around it. We know that we aired that Christmas special, whatever it was, in the 40s or 50s, whenever it was, and all of the U.S., a large percentage of the U.S. all watch the same TV show. That doesn't happen anymore. No longer. You can't take a percentage of the U.S. and have them watch that. So we've never had so much focus on single things. But it's kind of cool. We don't have to. Everything's niched out. If you have a niche for something, you can probably find 10,000 viewers for it. There's a guy who eats carrots who has like 100,000 views on his channel. He literally started a YouTube channel that eats carrots. I have no idea why people watch it, but they do.
But that's them. Yeah, and it's kind of when Joe Louis fought Max Schmeling,
right?
And so many of the people sat and listened on the radio, but it was and it's looked
There's
at
not
as an iconic moment,
right?
But in the same vein, it may have been a lot of people that would have listened to a whole nother sport, but
right?
It's like what other options existed for it to listen to. As I always give this example of Rich versus Reach.
Yes.
Reach to me is let's make something that we believe will be something that billions of people will agree to.
Right.
Hence, like a package like the Super Bowl. You got sports, you got commercials, you got this pop act performing, you got like spectacle. Like we're gonna try to put something in the box for everybody. Versus like Rich, which is something you were working on with the soccer club of Detroit.
Yeah,
Not
Detroit
too
City
long
FC.
ago.
Yeah,
and as I've seen that grow over the years, like what started as some people like, oh man, this is kind of cool, we should have our own soccer field, to like, oh, this is really cooler, like we can get our own stadium. So like now it's people that intrinsically feel a part of like that movement of soccer. And when people say, yeah, but wouldn't it be better to be a Super Bowl sponsor? Whereas I would say, people would think I'm crazy, but I think if people really saw me as ingratiated in the ethic of it, as my friend in the Detroit City Distillery is working with the soccer club, and if people really embrace it as that, now they feel like they're a part of us and not just selling to us.
Well, yeah, and it kind of goes back to if a corporate entity were to take a survey in Detroit, do we need a soccer team? And try to put this out there, and they go, there's only this much. And you say, that's not enough people. That's a small percentage. But now looking at the result of people who didn't bother asking permission of the authorities that be and go, we're just going to do it because we're passionate about it.
Yes.
And next thing you know, that the game I was at, there was, I'm pretty sure they said 2,700 people. And it was a sold-out game. It was televised. It was on Fox News. It was Germany. They flew from Germany to face the team here. So you had a team from Germany going against, I mean, this was a big event with all these people. The passion, the energy was in the crowd. And if someone were to ask it from a purely corporate perspective a few years ago, like you said, they would have gone, there's not enough interest here in Detroit. That wouldn't work.
Or what may end up happening if they if they put a MLS stadium, but those fans won't go to the MLS games.
Yeah. It's that culture that got built around it.
Yes.
And I think that's what you're seeing a lot of with the YouTube. You get people who are passionate followers of a thing. And we're able to do that now because we realize people have really niche interests. So we're able to then expand upon that. And if you have a talent for doing something and sharing that out there, comes back to, like I said, it's never been a better time to be a creator because it's awesome. You can create these little experiments on this thing and start doing it. Or you have a unique style of music you want to produce that you can say, okay, I want to produce this music. Here in Detroit, there's maybe 100 people listen to me. Globally, there's 100,000.
Yes.
And you're able to do that. You're able to export that content. Because once you get it online, the internet is an amplifier. Whatever it is you want to do, you'll find and it'll amplify that thing. So if you are on there, it scales because it's such a global amount of people on there. So it amplifies that thing you want to do. It allows you to search out others that are on there. There was a guy who started producing music, and I don't remember the channel's name, but I thought it was really novel what they had done. He just found other people to play with. And he started stitching together. Everyone kind of plays their own chord, and they're all remote, and he stitches them all together into a single song, but nobody's in the same room. So he's able to put these tracks together by finding other people that kind of like, hey, you do the chorus here, you play this instrument, I'll play that instrument, and then start reassembling it back together. And that's not possible. The guy's not in an area where he could find other people, but the internet and then YouTube provided
opportunity.
That. Yeah.
Now, along with that, let's talk about as people create and become content creators like you. how and it's still a learning journey, I think, no matter what. But how should they prepare themselves as they do get an audience? Because if something does go viral, or as people do start responding, like what mechanisms should they have in place to respond to people, to build upon what following they're growing?
That's having methods is still even tricky for me. As I scale, I was okay, what's the easiest way? I had to change the way our forms are because so many people want to contact me. So we had to create like a form for all these people that want to message me. Because I have a few friends that are shocked that I still even have a phone number, because they're like, it goes to my business. But I was met with another YouTuber a few weeks ago who's substantially bigger channel, and it's a real problem. They have to make sure there is no published phone numbers for it. And my cousin had this problem too, as she became got over the 500,000 subscriber mark on her YouTube channel. She has since.
And then tell a little bit more about your cousin, because your cousin's journey into it was also something encouraging, of very rich, very niche.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your cousin.
Yeah. So my cousin, she does if you Google Gone to the Snow Dogs, you'll find my cousin who lives in Alpena, Michigan. And she just likes sharing videos. And she started this like 2007 or 8 was her first upload. So, 10 years ago. She shares videos about her dogs and tells a story, not like just like a funny dog video like you're thinking of, but she tells a story, and she brings you into the story of her and her family. So she doesn't have any kids. So it's like her husband and her dogs. So she's just sharing that story and kind of bringing you along with there. Next thing you know, there's more subscribers. They have this partner program on YouTube that pays you for the ads that run on there. And my cousin actually owned a restaurant, and she has since sold the restaurant to her family. Her brother runs it now. People would just start showing up at the restaurant. People would, Alpena is not a easy to get to city.
You got that right.
It's not even by the freeway. I mean, it's an hour off the freeway in rural Michigan. So in far northern Michigan. So it's one of those things that, you have to start thinking about that of, oh crap, everyone's here. And she's actually had people, and she's had to let them know, and she's like, adults, not kids, have just decided to show up at her house when they figured out where she lived. And she's since moved, but she's like very close to the chest on it. So I guess there's some part of you that I enjoy interacting with people, but even myself, I've cut back on the phone calls because once people figured out what my extension was, they just started calling me all the time. And I uploaded a video the other day, and someone from an old video, and it's not that I listed it, but you can go through the dial by directory and still figure out my extension. And they right away, they're calling me, hey, I have a question about the video you just uploaded. And I don't always return all those calls. I want to, but I know how much time of my life I would spend on the phone with some of these people. And because they call sometimes just the main number. Hey, I want to talk to Tom. I want to talk to Tom because he uploaded a video, and I got a question about something in there. And I've told them, and I've added it to my videos. I have a form on my website. That's where you'll email me a question, because I don't mind replying to emails still as much as I can. So I think it's something you think about is, do you want to publish your phone number? You're excited to have fans. Then when they have 3.4 million views, and like I said, I'm only there, which is really small in the scale of YouTube, but the calls start coming up. The emails start coming up, and you got to figure out a way to kind of deal with it. It's as exciting as it is. It's also, oh boy, I can see the scale of this because I plan to grow substantially bigger. Then we better put something in place now. So making sure you have like a form, making sure you have methods by which you can be contacted, but you don't want to give them a direct line. Don't throw your cell number up on there.
Hilarious. Okay, so that's one tip. What about like ebooks? What about monetizing it? Should you be like, how eager should a content creator be on looking to
a lesson
get some money from?
I'm still learning is when it comes to sponsors. I reached out to a lot of sponsors early on my channel, and it wasn't very big, and I met with dead air. What I've realized as my channels got bigger, the opposite happens. And my cousin told me this, but I didn't believe her, because I apparently know better than someone with 500,000 subscribers on YouTube and running multiple channels, because I'm smart, right? I spent too much time thinking about trying to get those people. It turns out she was right. Once your channel gets bigger, they start contacting you a lot more. They just start sending you stuff. I get free stuff in the mail now, and which is kind of cool. And hot sauce companies going, hey, can we send you the thing or here? Because a little side note to my channels, we talk about hot sauces and things like that because we all like to eat spicy food. So it's kind of fun how as my channel grows, the sponsors are actively looking for people that they go, I want my product with your brand. So you don't have to spend too much time doing it, and you can really get caught up in the aggravation of reaching out to all these sponsor channels. And there's places I've learned and just meeting with dead air. Like, they do not care to reply. They look at you going, who are you? You don't have anything. Knowing who those sponsors are good. The other thing I'm going to warn people about, though, is be careful who you choose to have as a sponsor. Make sure they align with what you want. Are they a product or a company that you think would be a good fit for you? Just because they're offering you money doesn't necessarily mean you should.
Now let's talk a little bit about that, as in this world of content creation.
Yeah.
And we spoke a little bit about Joe Rogan, and I use him as an example because I've been listening to his podcast for years. And you're right. Like, it started where he was way more of a conspiracy theorist, where now he's shifted. I followed the journey of Joe. But originally, his podcast, which is one of the most listened to podcasts, started with, I want to say 100 listeners.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that was him being on, Fear Factor, and you know what I'm saying, news radio, and you know what I'm saying. This is
he's a personality.
Yes,
I mean, the guy has just got a presence.
Now with it, he has his own, he sells his own goods and everything. But I definitely think that he's grown into the sense of an idea of what he represents, but the relationship he has with his listenership. What happens if you do? Take on the wrong sponsor just because,
and that's where you can get
some money.
A real brand erosion problem. Mm-hmm. And you can recommend this product because they're willing to give you all this money, but then the product it fails, it's low quality or whatever it is, it's a scammy product. Or I look at people who took the time to promote that failed concert idea on an island. I've been watching some of the fallout from it. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's lawsuits.
Oh, the Ja Rule concert.
Yeah. but think about that as a perspective. If someone were paid to do that and they really recommended it, you don't care how good that guy's content is. He's like, you know what? That guy told me, and I bought tickets off his discount code for the concert. And man, that was an awful life experience.
And why does and I have my own take, but why do you think people feel that way so much about that from a content creator like a podcaster or a YouTuber, and feeling more slighted by them than per se if I don't know, I don't even know what it is. If you see a commercial with Kevin Hart and it's on TV.
Yeah. I think it's just one of those things because you develop this personal trust between them. So you're assuming if Tom recommends something that he reuses that product, he must use that product and things like that. So you get that. That's why a lot of times they have you doing an ad read when you're a creator. They don't just have you dropping in like a standard commercial that they produced. They want you to read about the product. And I look at some of the larger podcast networks and things like that. You take the announcer and he's reading about that and he's telling you maybe some personal experience with there. And some of the best content creators I'm going to talk about, like Twit.tv or a big tech podcast studio, Leo has built up years of trust. He's the guy that runs it, and he does the ad reads, but he's also talked outside of the podcasting world. He speaks at creator events, and he talks about that. Once they build that trust with you, never violate it. He was able to keep expanding his brand because he turns down advertisers left and right. He goes, they're not in alignment. I don't like your product, or I tried your product, I don't like it. So that rapport also means the ad people know that you decided their product is good. You like the product, so they're going to pay you more because they know your audience, you've kept that trust with you. So it works all the way around. You only recommend good products. Do that. But once you start being kind of just a shill for whatever project, like, oh, I'll just sell anything. Yeah, you want to throw money at me? I'll endorse your crap. Your audience kind of gets a different feeling because maybe you're not genuine with your content either. If you're not genuine with your ads, or you genuine with your content, or are you just making this up because I entertain it, you start breaking that whole trust relationship they have. That's what makes podcasting so interesting, or even any content creation so interesting, because it's a direct relation versus if I watch some television show, I have no idea. We talked about reality TV shows. There's a bunch of ads that run. There's no connection between the guy in the reality TV show and the ad spots that were put in, because he's not like he's holding and endorsing the brand necessarily. So that's that different kind of audience. So you got to make sure as a creator, if you're going to align yourself with a brand, you're aligning with the brand. It's not something your channel's just doing. I know YouTube has their own ads they sprinkle on, like banner ads on the channel, on my channel.
But
But I'm not
people
endorsing that
clearly
product.
know-
There's a clear separation
Yes.
between a product I endorse and get paid for versus a random ad that YouTube decided. I was actually told there's been a ton of political ads because political season's coming up. And apparently they're part of the pre-roll that YouTube is rolling. I have
Yes.
no association with whatever they are. I don't even know what they are because YouTube doesn't tell me. They focus the ads on the person watching, but I'm not endorsing it, so I've now separated myself from those.
Yes. Now, in that, and it's funny, it's like, this is like become like a good tutorial for content creators. So I'm gonna encourage a lot of people to watch this because I get asked a lot of questions. In that, like, what should the creator be thinking? Like, as far as like as they're building their team or they're drafting or they're blueprinting what they're going to do. What do you suggest is the best method to just get started and to
Get started in the creation part. First, you got to make sure you're figuring out what your niche is. And you may not know. You kind of have that spaghetti approach. I'm just going to keep throwing videos out there, and I'll figure out which ones get views. And I did a lot of that. My first handful of videos are random, and they don't make any sense to what I do now. Well, I guess they kind of do. I was playing with technology. I was taking things apart and showing people how they come apart and realized, okay, people are less interested in this. So what about this other aspect that I do? And it's this constant shaping. So even you may start with at least some idea of the content you're going to do, and then figure out what gets views. And that's really hard in the beginning because nothing's going to get views. Even if you made one of your perfect videos, you may not know until 20 videos later, you go back and hold on, my third video got all these views, but like nothing else does. What did I do different? What is it that people are looking for in that video? So there's, when you're creating content, that's tough. It's even tougher as a podcast because getting good stats on your podcast is next to impossible. But as you create it, you start doing that. So your roadmap is a constant look back at what's working, feedback from your audience. I have an end roll I throw on all of mine going, hey, if you like this video, like, subscribe, and leave comments what you liked, what you didn't like. Ask people. It really is, but you've got to ask them. If you don't ask them, they may not think to tell you why they hate you or why they love you. And take the haters with a grain of salt because there's some people are just angry. I don't know why. That's the internet. They can be. They're anonymous. They have something less than pleasant to say.
YouTube comments is like
it's a cesspool.
A breeding ground of just like, you just look at like, I don't know anything. Like it'll be like Pharrell's happy video and it'll just be like,
yeah. And there's just people who I realized that I had someone, I am on a lot of different platforms where I post my content on Reddit. Someone had a less than nice thing to say about me and I just kind of laughed. But I actually read through they took the time to type a long comment of why they didn't like me. So they had a lot to say of why they didn't like my channel. But I actually addressed some of the points. Normally, there is a theory in business of hug your haters, and
that's man, I'm forgetting my man that did the Gary
Gary Vaynerchuk, or
he talks a little bit about that.
There's about that.
Sometimes I like Gary's stuff. Sometimes
he's a little over the top
way.
and things like that. Yeah, I agree. Too many entrepreneurs really just embrace as if he's the epitome of what you should be, and I'm not of that mindset. There's things I like about the guy.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
But there's other things that are important in life to me besides just making the next dollar. So, but the hug your haters theory is when you have people who complain about what you do. Like, for example, and they leave a bad review if you're a business, only reply once to them. If you reply twice, you become down the rabbit hole crazy of trying to address them. But sometimes there is a valid, if you read it, and sometimes there's not, and this is very subjective. There was some validity to what the person said. I also clicked on the person's profile and realized they pretty much leave a negative comment everywhere they go. And there's that. So take that as a indicator. Some people, they just look for things to complain about. But don't take it too hard on yourself, but decide if there's any value in what they said about the way you do things. And I did address something that they commented on because it was the way I produce my content and what I do. But it was just me thinking about how I shape my channel. And so constantly looking for feedback, asking for feedback. And that's the hardest part about when you're getting started. You just have to keep producing content because if no one's watching it, you also don't have people producing feedback for you either because they're not anyone watching it to see it. It's not easy to self-promote on YouTube. If you're producing music, there's that. But how many times have someone, hey, man, check out my SoundCloud, check out my mixtape. It's really hard.
I think you're dropping a lot of good hints. And certain things that I want to even bring into the house. Like sometimes I feel like with feedback all the time with artistry, just like from our music mode, it's weird. Like I think, you know, asking people to critique something naturally brings out like a negative
Yes.
thought process. Because like, you know, but sometimes presenting people stuff and then just what you think. Like it's kind of like how do you present that feedback, like where it's not like how do you think this can be better, because it's a weird world of like
it is.
Am I supposed to say that it's not, like, you know, they ask me for something, I may think it's perfect, or I may think, oh, I don't even know necessarily if I'm the person to comment on this. Like, it's a mixed bag sometimes when it comes to feedback.
Well, too, and the other problem is there are so many videos. I mean, there's thousands of videos being uploaded. There's been a few thousand more videos uploaded since we started talking here an hour ago. That is one of the things. The scale of it is so immense that you can get lost in the sea of it. But let's actually turn this around a little bit and talk about ways you can legitimately promote yourself. And I'll use what we're doing right now as an example. So I have a following on Twitter. I have a following on my podcast. I have a following on my YouTube channel. I am going to mention I was on Detroit is Different.
Yeah.
Guesting on other shows because you have something interesting to say is awesome. It is a great way to cross-promote. If you can,
yes.
We've done this with our podcast. We have had other podcasters on our podcast. We have turned that around. We have guested on many other podcasts. We mentioned IT&D, and I've been on there several times. This constant cross-promotion, that is a huge method of growth. How do you get cross-promotion? Well, a lot of places are looking for guests all the time.
Yeah.
So reach out to them. Even if they're smaller than you, certainly not a problem.
I sometimes think that if they're smaller, it's better too. And sometimes with the reach, it goes back to, you know, when I was performing, my best shows, and people think I'm, you know, speaking, as they say, man, you're always extra positive. And it's like, it's weird because I don't think I'm extra positive or negative. I just think that I'm progressing in a quality of life I like.
Yes.
So, but my best shows would always be the shows where not many people would come. And I would do a great performance, because what would end up happening is it'd be like 7 people at the show and they say, damn, man, more people should really be here for this. And they became like an ambassador for like, yo, next time you do a show, I'm bringing like 7 people, because if you're this good for this many people, then I can't imagine, you know, like they joined the mission. And as you talk about like going to that podcast or going to that local access network TV show or whatever that may, you know, you may be sort of talking to dead air, whoever that is that's the host may now be a part of whatever the vision where you're going. You know, like, I found that to happen a lot too.
Yeah, and it's funny because this concept isn't new. I mean, we've all seen small bands open for big bands.
Yeah.
And you went there because you went for the big band and that was playing. You're like, oh man, these guys that opened for them, they were great. And it's also why they opened, so you don't leave after.
Yes. Yeah.
But the concept isn't new. That kind of cross pollination works really well. So you find other people who are in the same genre that you think that your goal is for your channel, and or wherever you're producing your content, whatever method you're doing, and you guest on those. You join those other YouTube channels. You reach out to them, and that's also really tricky. That's a stepping ladder. I reached out to big channels. They ignored me, and they still will. I've reached out to a couple of them, and they'll look at you and go, well, you've got all of 10 subscribers, Tom. Sorry, we're not even going to bother with you. So you do have to kind of do the stepping stone thing of, I reached out to smaller channels and they're like, hey, that sounds like a good idea. And because they're still trying to build their audience. So it's kind of funny. I have a couple friends online that we produce similar content, and we've now become friends, and our channels are growing almost in lockstep with each other. We're only a few percentage apart, and we have been for.
But you all probably started at the same point, and now have like a progression, because that's the other thing too, like the developing horizontally as opposed to vertically, because it's hard to just, you know, walk up to Oprah like, hey Oprah, guess what, I'm doing video now, and it's like,
hey, can I sit next to you and jump on the show with you, you know?
Yeah, she's like, who are you, you know what I'm saying? Whereas, you know, I guess, you know, if you would have met Oprah 35 years ago,
right,
it's like, hey, I know this sounds weird, but we're gonna make this local access TV show. And she's like, oh, I'm all for that.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. There's different. So you kind of have to. You may have to start small. Hey, great if you can find the break and jump on someone who has a big channel that aligns to you. Awesome, amazing, great. But statistically, likelihood, no. It's sorry.
Now Now, along with that, I also think it's some people that have like no audience or just starting, but they're really passionate about what they do, and that's why it's a reason.
Yeah.
It's cool to go there.
Yeah, and it's always fun, and for the music producers, there's all kinds of success stories of people who are independent artists who just put things on YouTube and started doing it. One of the people that comes to mind, and I'm not particularly a fan of her music, but I just know how YouTube was a big catalyst in her journey. She makes those videos. She plays the violin. I can't remember her name at all. She plays it really well. Not into that, but boy, she has built a following and does concerts and everything now. And it started with she just put this stuff. She was good with the way she played. She had a style to it and things like that. Or he's less not really about music, but he's a spoken word comedian. It's just going to be Bo Burnham. If you ever see, you know who Bo Burnham is? You ever seen his very first stupid videos done in his bedroom? They are hysterical. He just put the camera, no editing. He just looks at the camera, plays the piano, and says stupid stuff. And it's like you're just cracking up. You're like, this is absurd. This is naughty. This is funny. And next thing you know, he's got a HBO show. He's got this.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Next thing you know, took years to accumulate this.
Yeah, but it built from the ethic of like, and then also having a team around too.
Yep.
Because that's the other thing. Do you, and you do a lot of things like me. You do a lot of independent things.
Yeah.
How many other people are needed in the mix, and what's the advantages of having a team versus working independent?
I generally, so my YouTube is still mostly independent. Other than Marvin hanging out with Vlog Thursdays, there's not a lot of they're incidentally in the video.
Shout out Marvin.
Yeah,
It's
shout
so
out
funny.
Marvin.
It's like I remember when he, like I was in there messing with my computer for something, and like when he first came on board, and then they were like, he was like, yeah, we're gonna try this hot sauce challenge. I was like, Marvin, don't do that.
Yeah.
Years later, he has joined. He has joined
Yep.
the Lawrence team in full.
Yeah. So the YouTube is mostly an independent thing, and I say incidental the other people, and the reason why is because I cover projects we do. So they're incidentally doing the project, so that's they're not necessarily part of what I'm doing. They're just doing their job, and I'm filming it. So they're not really into the YouTube thing. Marvin's background is actually in stand-up comedy and stuff like that. So if you didn't know, he used to be an MC for some of the local comedy clubs, and he's had his own act he's done, and so he's always been. He likes being on there, but he's not as techie. So most of my focus is, going in depth on tech videos on how to set things up in a very deep and detailed way with firewalls and all kinds of geeky stuff. But my podcasting, the podcasting is a little different because that's a lot more collaborative. We bounce ideas off each other. Tony's the one who started the podcast originally, and they had people leaving, and I was just like, hey, you guys are awesome. You just kind of sit around the microphone, and it's specifically the podcast is deep dives talking about Linux. So Tony, being that his day job is working doing firewall security engineering for a very large company, then he teaches at U of M, so he's really good at what he does. And actually, I mentioned he's in China for the next 2 weeks teaching network security in China. But you got someone who's just super passionate about network engineering and Linux, so I joined there. We have Mary, who's also passionate about it, who lives right here in Detroit. And I brought on another friend because it just works well with four of us together. So that being a collaborative effort means we have to coordinate with show notes. We have to all have a shared vision, which is you have to establish it before you have on the show. Do we all share the same passion and vision? We may have different opinions about it, but we all have a driving passion towards the same topics. We're very deep dived into our topics. Phil runs globally. I won't say exactly what he does because part of his job is under NDA, but he does global security on a global scale. So he is not just kind of passionate about what he does; he's super deep into what he does on there, and it comes through with there. So having a bunch of creators, 4 people creating and working off the same thing.
And you're extremely passionate too.
Oh yeah. I'm as deep into it as ever.
Linux and all open source since I've known you, and every time I think about it, it's like I'm married to Windows or something. It's weird.
It's hard, and we talk a lot about that in our show about moving off of proprietary technologies like Windows and things like that. But that passion that we have got picked up last year, to our surprise, by Microsoft, and they flew us out to their 3 biggest conferences. We flew out to their Build conference. We flew out to their Ignite conference, and then the biggest one in terms of not size, but in terms of notoriety was they brought us to their New York City headquarters at Microsoft, and we got to interview people up on stage and stuff like that, and actually do these interviews with these C-level executives at Microsoft. So they gave us access to like the top people there, because Microsoft's trying to change over to use more of this. I won't get into the little political details between it, but it was kind of fascinating. All they did was listen to us being passionate about there, and they fly us out places. Like all four of us, all expense paid trip. Like, we're gonna fly you to Seattle. We're gonna fly you to Florida for a week.
And even though like one of your a person like me who has been and that's the cool thing about you guys too, because you all have like huge contracts, and then you'll still like knock around with my computers and stuff too. But somebody that's been coming to you all for years, you still will say, switch over to open source and Linux.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've sat there, and it's funny. We're interviewing people at the Microsoft New York City Times Square place, and we're talking to them by why they should use Linux, and we're dealing with people whose their boss is the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella. Like, we're one step. We joke, like, can we interview him? Or like, they're like, no. I'm like, no one gets to interview the CEO of Microsoft, so he picks who interviews him. A couple people from Michigan talking about Linux aren't gonna make the cut.
Because you always are like, man, this is open source, and you can use this, and you can do that.
We're talking about things we're passionate about. We're passionate about these things, and that led to a lot. So when it comes to picking your creators, finding people, just because I'm in that world, I'm in the hackerspace world. I go to these, and I met, I don't forget where I met Phil. Anyways, not matter. I go to these open source conferences and these hackerspace conferences and things like that. I've been going to them for years to find those people. So it wasn't too big of a surprise I found them, but then finding ones that are also willing to articulate onto a microphone is a little tricky.
And they're good at it, and they're passionate about it.
Yes.
And then they also compromise, and you all collectively come together to make the
to make it under. Phil was the hardest one because Phil's never been a media creator before. Phil is a precision person, very precise, and he talks very precise. So bringing out personality in him on a video on there took some training. Phil takes things almost too serious all the time. If you meet a lot of people in tech, you realize there's a lot of people who are super awkward. The only way to describe it. They're very deep in there. So that's another thing, finding someone who can bring forth some personality. And it's not a dig at any of my guys, but a lot of them have no interest in being on video.
That is definitely not Steve.
Yeah, Steve talks a lot, but he's also not the best in front of a camera. We've joked around about making a video about Steve, and mostly just be him ranting angrily about technology.
I had him ranting about my old ass computer last week.
Yes. It's entertaining, but it's also hard to get something educational out of Steve because he doesn't have any interest in that part. He's very interested in fixing the technology. He's also interested in screaming about it too. So maybe that would make a good video. I don't know.
I would watch the Steve channel every day.
Yeah. Steve's mad about something today. That would be what it's titled.
Oh, yeah. Today, this hour?
Every day. This week's, yeah. I actually have a few other friends who are deeply technical, but they also have no interest. I've tried to talk him to it, and there's no interest in producing any content. A few other friends I know, it's not their thing. And so there's this weird combination you have to find of someone who may be really good at it and also has some, wants to bring it on to the microphone, wants to bring it on in front of people. It could be just because they're shy, they're bashful, they just don't like being in front of people. I have a friend who now has 3 published books. He's clearly an amazing content creator. He started a YouTube channel, but he constantly doesn't want to do it because he's just has all kinds of, very openly admits he's highly nervous about doing anything in front of people. He has serious anxiety issues. He's really smart. Like I said, he's now has 4 published books that are very popular, but he has no interest in the other parts of it.
And it's funny as we get close to this at the end, I've seen that happen often too, where like great people to talk to and everything, then the lights come on, the cameras hit, and I believe some people are overthinking.
They freeze.
What it is, because it's like, I don't want to say anything where I sound stupid, or I want to make sure that everything gets across clear, where some of it, I guess the way that I look at content creation is like we're stumbling through, like our learning curve is like, my thought on something today may be completely different 2 years from now.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to speak on it from an intentionality of like, this is the premise and this is my presence of mind about it.
Yeah. And that's a thing. I mean, you can grab someone, you can meet some guy randomly on the street here in Detroit, and you're like, wow, man, this guy is rocking. He's just standing on a street corner performing,
just talking or whatever.
Just whatever he's doing. And you're like, this guy is passionate. I'm watching him do it. But if you brought him into the studio and put a mic in front of him, it would just turn off.
Yeah.
You know, maybe that's not his thing. I'm always fascinated by those unusual individuals you occasionally meet who have no interest in any fame. They simply will do their craft to do it for no reason other than to do it, and they don't want any more structure put around them than they have. They've carved out a niche. They've reached this place where they're happy in life, and that's it. And just because you see the passion in someone, it may be fun to interview them and talk to them a second about it, but they do not want to change what they are. You know, I kind of respect that about some people, that they've just found this super happy place they are. So they don't always make the best people just because they're doing it. So if you have to drag someone too hardcore in,
I know.
Yeah, that can be a sign that maybe you shouldn't. The other thing too, you meet the people who are over enthusiastically about being in, and I've run into this. And I'm not trying to call anybody out or anything, but you get those people. I really want to be part of it. I want to be part of it. But when you talk to them, you're like, dude, they have no ideas. They're just
they don't have anything to say.
They don't have anything to say.
They're not adding.
They don't add any value to your content.
Yes.
So you have to be careful with your brand with this, especially, you're very independent creators of what we do. So this is something you have to really focus on. Are these people going to add value? And this is a harsh decision because you want to be nice to everybody, but occasionally you got to cut it off. I mean, this is business. I mean, I got a lot of friends that go, hey, Tom, you seem to have a cool place. Can I just work for you? No. You're unemployable is what I want to tell some of them. Like,
hilarious.
Seriously, you know that you're like, look, you're cool, but I like having a beer with you, but I know how your work ethic is.
Like, I hang out with you. I already know you.
I got a friend who's been every job he's had, and he's so good at it, and he's so proud of how he games every corporate job to do as little as possible. It kind of amuses me, but he is so good at gaming corporate systems. But he's also said, he goes, I can never work for you. You wouldn't tolerate what I do. Yes. He goes, you see through my patterns. He's like, he's honest. He's never asked for a job.
We need to have him make like a video or a YouTube channel where he like puts on the Ronald Reagan mask.
Yeah, how to do the least amount of work possible. He figured out the Comcast system. He was able to get the highest score. Comcast has this grading system for their installers. He was able to achieve higher scores than everyone, and everyone hated him for it. And this is the funniest reason why they hated him, because they're like, they know how little he does. He learned how to game the system to do nothing and get the best scores and get bonuses. And he says, I can write a manual on how to do this. He goes, all these other people out there are busting their butt, working hard. And one of the things he did when Comcast closed to move their office, they get points for collecting the boxes. He went and parked at the old Comcast building, just parked there for the day and collected people's boxes. So he won the most turn-ins for boxes. They're like, how'd you go collect all these? Everyone else is driving around and doing this. And he's like, I don't know. I just sat in a parking lot playing games, and I just told them, oh, the building's closed. Just hand it to me, and signed them all up. So he got the most numbers. He games every system. He goes, Comcast didn't think about that, so I did it until they caught me.
What's so weird is I'm not, it's like different people have different levels of, looking at game systems. Yeah. But just the effort in it, especially as I've gotten better at business, I can't do it. Like the other day.
Me either.
I got the line from the line, meaning the skinny as the skinny what happened through Huggy Bear on Starsky and Hutch. Yeah. But like street code came of like, hey, do you want to get a central air unit? And God knows where that central air unit is stolen from or something. I'm like, nah, man, I'm okay. I can't do it at this point in time. Now, it was a younger me that would have been like, seriously? You know what I'm saying? But like now, I can't do it. But people that do game systems, it's a science to all of those hustles and stuff
and it's
like
not,
that too.
And that's the thing. I've never been trying to do it that way. I mean, I don't endorse that. I just am amused by it.
Yeah, I was going to say,
But you have to make those decisions about people and go, why is it I want them on here? Why I don't want them on here? And it's a tough decision because I imagine this is, of course, with any music or if even you, once they found out you got a studio, everyone's running at you going, oh, I get free everything and you'll produce and cut and all this for me and then you'll promote me, right?
And then it's like, man, come on, man. Like some of it, just finding people that are passionate. Right. The passion and the integrity and the intentionality is really the most important thing. And I hope that that's where my mind is. And and that's really the number one reason. Every time I come to, I have and it's been sometimes short as like 2-3 weeks. Like you're buying some new equipment, you're learning some new software, you're adding to what your studio is, you're changing the direction of the vision. You're big on your workflow. You're big, like it's adding. I've never come to you and you're like, I'm basically in the same space creatively where I was yesterday. It's always progressing.
Yes.
And I love that energy. And it's like, well, damn, Tom's doing it. He's making it real. I can do this. You know?
Yeah, just push. And I find my inspiration from other people too sometimes. You know, you just constantly follow those inspiring people, whatever it is. And if Gary Vee is the guy who inspires you, follow him. He's not my, you know, maybe I should make a list of all the people that I like inspiring me, because those are people that shape me. Or, you know, I will throw at least one mention of a book I read. I'm going to read it again. It's called Without Their Permission, and it's by Alexis Ohanian. He's the founder of Reddit and a bunch of other web properties. But fascinating. His concept for the book is without their permission. He didn't ask anyone's permission to produce one of the top websites in the world where people share ideas, which is Reddit and things like that. He didn't ask permission to do these things. And he talks a lot about that in his as a concept for when you're an entrepreneur, you want to start something. You're just kind of going against things and just saying, I'm not going to ask the permission of the people in charge of the media before we produce this. And he did this years ago, and he brings forward the entire, from idea to being shot down with ideas, a lot of them making it in to one of the, if you're not familiar with Y Combinator, there are the Silicon Valley funding agency. Like, it is a big deal to get into Y Combinator. If they fund things, they fund the biggest ideas in Silicon Valley. He got in there, and what was funny is his idea got in front there for the pitch. They listened to it, and they said, I tell you what, no. All of us, we completely hate your idea, but we loved you. We want you to come back here in 30 days like with another idea, because we think you have a lot of passion, but your idea sucked that you brought us. And which is rare. That's almost never happened to anyone who's gotten in front of Y Combinator. And it's he brings that through in his book, his passion for things, what got him where he is, things he's done, things he's accomplished. He actually has his own funding company. He funds all kinds of, it's funny, it's a pig with bread wings. It's called Bread Pig. And it is his funding agency to fund small startup ideas and help other people, or just, you know, create things, angel investments and things like that in tech. But his book is great. It's inspiring. It's a good read for people who want to understand new media creation and things around it and facing challenges. What's amazing to me about Alexis Ohanian, the last thing I'll say about the guy is, you got a guy who wrote a book at 30 years old that's worth reading, that's on a bestseller list. How many people at 30 have already accomplished enough to write a book? And the guy is just the most human. I tweeted, so this is how cool of a person, at least how I feel about him, a pleasant guy. I tweeted after I finished his book, I did the audio book because I was on a long drive. I tweeted, I tagged him in a tweet. I was like, loved your book. Without permission, I just want to see how great it was. He replied back, how was my voice? I felt nervous reading it myself. Here's a guy who's well accomplished, very successful by all measures of success that we use. And he's worried that his voice didn't turn out right on there. He's like a very real person to talk to. Like, that's cool. He said, thanks, but how was my voice? Like,
yeah, a different presence of mind.
He also says that in the book too a couple of times. He says, don't ask your mom how you're doing. She's going to say great. Don't ask your friends if what you're doing is right. They're the wrong people to ask. I think that's something else you think. Don't just go ask your friends. So was what I'm doing cool, guys? Oh, great. It is great. Thumbs up. Awesome. That's, you know, your friends all kind of egg you along. You got to ask strangers. And it may be harsh, but, you know.
That's where it gets. Now, let me.
I get you there.
As we get to the end of this and we 5 over, I guess, like, you've already answered the 3 questions I always ask. So. I guess we can kind of close with, how do people get in contact with you, and also what do you see next that you're working on?
Easy way to get in contact with me is everything about me is at lawrencesystems.com, from my company to my YouTube channel to all the other links that I do. So that's always the easy starting point, where I'm not shy about all the things you can connect me with, from the Twitter to all the other platforms. Other things I'm doing, we are just more of the same is kind of what I joke, but more of the same for me means more videos, more things on there. My big picture is we're trying to figure out how to build a tech community here in Detroit that's kind of like the hacker mentality. And I'm trying to do it in the downriver area and maybe here in the Detroit area too. We're trying to put this together. It's a couple ideas I have of a more hands-on approach. So there is a makerspace already in, I believe it's in Ferndale right now, that's doing pretty well. And I'd like to see if we can't find one in the downriver or Detroit area, maybe another place, where people can get hands-on with some of the tech. And some of the tech I talk about, like learning about the firewalls, learning about that, building lab environments for us. So there's already a makerspace for people who are passionate about making things and objects. But I'm thinking more of a makerspace, more of a hackerspace in terms of let's play with the things. Maybe I'm crazy for even thinking that there's enough people here to do it. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. There's a bunch of people here that want to get into information security and things like that. I don't know where that lies, but I'm hopefully find it. I found that there's enough people interested in my YouTube channel. Maybe there's some people locally that are interested in some hands-on too for learning that, and I would like to make a go of it. I think more people need to get into the technology side that I'm in with the computer security and things like that. We hear about another hack or another security breach every single day. We need more people in security. There's not enough. That's just a fact of where we're at with things right now. So that's what I've got going on.
As always, and I would not be surprised, just in classic Tom fashion, like in about 6 months out, you'll have like figured out where that's going to be taking place as well.
Yeah, well, there is some space release right by my building, and we're looking at it going, what if I could build a giant lab network where people can come in and just actively try to hack it? Wouldn't that be fun? For the right people. Some people are going, what are you talking about, Tom?
I'm with it. Thank you so much.
All right.
Perfect.